In the final years of the Cold War, the Soviet Union built something so secret, so deeply buried, that even many of its own generals didn't know it existed. It wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It wasn't a missile or a bomb or a new kind of warhead. It was something far stranger, a machine designed to watch the world end and then finish the job. To understand why it was created, you have to understand the fear that defined the early 1980s. The Soviet Union believed the United States was preparing for a first strike, an attack so sudden and overwhelming that Moscow would be vaporized before it could respond. In that scenario, the Soviet leadership would be gone. Communication lines would be gone. Command centers would be gone. And with them, the ability to retaliate. For the Soviets, that was unacceptable. Their entire nuclear strategy depended on the idea that if they were attacked, they could strike back. That threat, mutually assured destruction, was supposed to keep both sides from ever launching the first blow. But if the United States could destroy the Soviet command structure in minutes, that balance collapsed. So the Soviets began working on a solution, a system that could guarantee retaliation even if the country's leadership was dead, a system that didn't rely on human decision-making, a system that could launch nuclear weapons automatically. They called it Perimeter. NATO called it something else. The dead hand. Perimeter wasn't a single machine, it was a network, an entire architecture of sensors, bunkers, communication lines, and automated launch systems. At its core was a simple but terrifying idea. If the Soviet Union was destroyed, the system would detect it and fire back on its own. The system monitored seismic activity, radiation levels, atmospheric pressure, and communication signals. It listened for the sounds of nuclear detonations. It watched for the sudden silence of Moscow's command posts. It waited for the moment when everything went dark. If those conditions were met, Perimeter would activate. Deep underground in a hardened bunker, a small group of officers would receive a single question: has the Soviet Union been destroyed? If they confirmed it, or if they were dead and unable to respond, the system would take over. But here's the part most people don't know. The first missiles Perimeter launched weren't aimed at the United States. They were aimed at the Soviet Union itself. These were command missiles. Their job wasn't to hit a target. Their job was to fly high into the atmosphere and broadcast launch orders to every remaining Soviet missile silo, submarine, and mobile launcher. Even if every general, every commander, every communication line was gone, the missiles would still fire. It was a doomsday machine, a real one, built by human hands. Inside the Perimeter bunkers, the officers who manned the system lived in silence. Their job was simple: monitor the sensors, wait for the signal, and confirm whether the world had ended. They trained for a moment they hoped would never come. They lived with the knowledge that if they ever pressed the final confirmation, there would be no turning back. The secrecy surrounding Perimeter was extreme. Only a handful of high-ranking officials even knew it existed. Many Soviet leaders were kept in the dark. Documents were locked away. Reports were classified. Even after the Cold War ended, much of the system remained hidden behind layers of silence. But in 1983, the world came closer to triggering Perimeter than most people realize. That year, NATO ran a military exercise called Able Archer. It simulated a nuclear launch sequence with such realism that the Soviet Union believed it might be the real thing. Soviet radar operators watched their screens with growing panic. Intelligence officers feared the United States was using the exercise as cover for an actual attack. For a brief moment, the Soviet Union prepared for the worst, and Perimeter stood ready. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, many assumed the system was dismantled. The bunkers were abandoned. The documents were scattered. The old command centers fell into decay. But declassified reports, interviews with former officers, and statements from Russian officials suggest something else. Perimeter may not have been shut down. It may have been upgraded. It may still exist. Some analysts believe the system was modernized to work with new missile technology. Others believe it was integrated into Russia's current nuclear command structure. A few even claim it has been made more automated, not less. If that's true, then somewhere deep underground, in a bunker built during the darkest days of the Cold War, a machine is still listening, still watching, still waiting for the signs of nuclear fire. And if those signs ever appear, if Moscow goes silent, if the sensors detect the unthinkable, the system could activate again. A machine built to end the world, still waiting in the dark. The existence of Perimeter raises a question that has haunted nuclear strategists for decades. Is a doomsday machine a stabilizing force or a catastrophic risk? On one hand, it guarantees retaliation, which makes a first strike less likely. On the other hand, it removes human judgment from the most important decision in human history. During the Cold War, both sides feared accidental launches, false alarms, and miscommunications. Perimeter was designed to eliminate uncertainty, but in doing so, it created a new kind of danger, one where a machine, not a person, could decide the fate of millions. Even today, the details of Perimeter remain classified. Russia acknowledges the system exists, but refuses to say whether it is active. Some former Soviet officers claim it was tested successfully. Others insist it was never fully operational. The truth lies somewhere in the shadows. What we do know is this: the logic that created Perimeter has not disappeared. The fear of a decapitating strike still exists. The need for guaranteed retaliation still shapes nuclear strategy, and the technology to automate those decisions has only grown more advanced. In a world where communication networks can be hacked, satellites can be blinded, and command centers can be targeted in minutes, the idea of a system that can survive anything and strike back automatically remains appealing to military planners. But it also remains terrifying, because once a machine like Perimeter is activated, there is no negotiation, no diplomacy, no second thoughts, no human judgment, only the cold logic of a system built for one purpose: to ensure that if one nation falls, the world falls with it. The dead hand was born from fear. It survived the collapse of an empire. And if the reports are true, it may still be waiting for silence, waiting for fire, waiting for the end.